So we're just going to move forward in regards to the presentation. So on my screen, I have three of the main operating systems showing up: the Aura software, the chakra diagnostic software, and the organ biofeedback graphs to the right-hand side. So the system is modular, meaning when you purchase a Biopulsar system, you're buying a hand plate. You're also buying what software you want to complement that. And the only way I can describe it is when AuraMed first came out with the program, it was the triple hand plate, which I'm operating off the double hand plate, but it was the triple hand plate as well as the Aura, the chakra, and the organ biofeedback graph. There was no additional softwares. It was those three, but even at the time it was very limited. She basically created it to be diagnosing the aura, the chakra, and the organs, and there was no information at all that corresponded with it. She's of course evolved with the system over the past 20 years, and more details have been incorporated into the main operating systems. But because Martina Gruber herself is a medical clairvoyant and trained licensed in acupuncture, homeopathy, as well as Ayurvedic medicine, she was wanting to have technology that validated her medical intuition. And her gifts in medical intuition are where she actually sees the spinning auras, she sees the details of the chakra flow, she sees the energetic connection. And so therefore she was using aura technology. And back in the day, you know, when you think about it, 40 years ago, they had aura cameras. So she was using outdated equipment to actually assess her clients. And because of her gifts and level of medical intuition, she was going far beyond what aura technology could do. Now, not that, for example, myself being highly intuitive, even though I use it for the refined information, I'm not licensed to diagnose. And so therefore, you know, when I talk to people, it's more about energy balance, because when I know that a part of the body is energetically strong or weak, then that gives me ammunition as to how to help clients. And I do remember early on when I first started working with the company, and I'm going back 26 years ago, and even before that, I did have an aura scan on one of these old aura camera systems. Now, the reading itself, there was nothing. Rather, they provided me with a 20-page printout, which to me was very generic. It literally could have applied to anybody. And of course, depending on, your how you process, I'm very strong left brain. So as I'm reading the report, I'm going, well, this can apply to anybody. Now, had I been maybe more right brain, I would have went, ooh, this is me. But, because it was very generic, there was no evidence. There was nothing concrete for me to say, wow, this is me 100%. And so I didn't buy into aura technology. And we had been approached by different manufacturers asking our company to carry and promote their technology. And the reason why they wanted to align with us is we had 1,200 stores and holistic centers and clinics and practitioners of, all kinds that were color energy customers. So I think a lot of companies saw us at these different events and went, wow, they're soliciting the business we want to sell our aura equipment to. So maybe color energy will actually rep our equipment. My boss, Nikolai, sent me to California, where I actually aligned with a couple of the different manufacturers that were out there. And I went there, investigated the equipment, came back to Canada and said to Nikolai, not interested. There's nothing tangible. They're all very generic readers. And of course, any machine based on your intuition, it's your intuition that will create a really powerful system, or your knowledge, because the more knowledge you have in the esoteric arts, then the more you can use any device and get the answers that you want to give, but you wouldn't have the science or the analytical perspective to support it. And that's what blew me away with this system. It was our head office, our color energy head office in Norway, that said there's this system out of Germany that we think needs to take a look at. And I actually said to, Nikolai, I'm not interested in repping Aura technology because none of them are evidence-based. And if I can't have it evidence-based, I really don't want to work with it because we're building a reputation, and that reputation means something. I want people to understand, when we use essential oils, we're using therapeutic grade. If I'm selling technology, I want to make sure that it's tangible, it's provable, it's something that's evidence-based. So I said to him, I'm not interested in working with Aura technology. And I can tell you, I partnered with a lot of these different companies and taught classes with them. I know all the manufacturers quite well that are out there. So I had built relationships with them other than the fact that I didn't want to rep their technology. But when our head office sent us the first generation model was called AuraStar 2000. And when I received this system and I put my hand on it, right away, I could see where my weakest link was. And that's one of the things that I thought was really interesting, was the fact it showed me where my health issue was and how it tied into the auras and the chakras. And still to this day, I'm just going to go third row down, 2 in, is my mouth. And so I'm just pointing to the graphs there where the green line is the optimal energy, but my mouth, which is registering with the red line, is well below where it should be, indicating an energy weakness. And through the Aura software, I can click on the Excel export information and it will actually show you that my mouth is 0.35 and it should be between 5 and 7. So it should be illustrating 5.00 to 7.00, indicating that I have good vitality there. But because even today it's showing 0.35, you can see that my mouth is my weakest link. Now, I can also share with you that I broke my jaw. I've smashed my 2 front teeth. When I was a kid, I constantly had tonsillitis, strep throat, a lot of impacts. When I was 16, I was in a car accident where, again, I injured the back of my neck and my throat area. When I was 18, I was in another car accident. At 21, I was in another one. I've actually, within a period of about 5-6 years, I was in 6 car accidents. And each one, I was impacted here, but it caused more stress here, where at a point, I had severe TMJ that I could barely open up my mouth. Now, so, when I went on the Biopulsar, it validated that my throat chakra was at 23%. And I want to show you now today, I just did the scan before I went on online here on Zoom, and you can see that my throat chakra is at 55%. That is the difference. It's now within the healthy range, where when I first started with the technology 20 years ago, my mouth was resonating at half of the average. And it took me 2 years of dedicating myself to shifting the energy there. Now, because I've broken my jaw actually is crooked. My teeth are crooked when I smile, so I still have damage that's in the background that is not visually seen. And I could also share with you, prior to the AuraStar / Biopulsar technology, every system I went on, whether it was Aura technology or some other measuring device, not one of them diagnosed this area as stressful. And, again, it's not that their systems didn't show some truth. However, because there was no evidence, I had a hard time always believing what people said, because it wasn't anything I was feeling was a true experience. For example, I had, one person saying, oh, your heart chakra is blocked. Well, there was no evidence to show me where in the heart chakra I was blocked, other than them saying your heart chakra is blocked. And of course, maybe at that time I could have been going through something that would have been illustrating that, but there was no proof. And so therefore, what I've learned is when there's no proof, it's just hearsay, and hearsay doesn't go very far. But when you have the visual proof, people will see that proof and go, oh my goodness, yeah, that makes sense. So with myself, seeing that my mouth was flatlining, and also I'll illustrate in my own picture here, the mouth is gray, but 20 years ago, the mouth was actually a very dark, dirty color, which indicated the level of toxicity. Now, because I've been doing this for a couple decades now, as you can imagine, I'm much more advanced than I was 20 years ago. But because nobody ever assessed this, and because I've always been clear in my communications, nobody ever assessed that I had any damage there. Now, when I go back in my history, at age 6, when I smashed my 2 front teeth, I slipped on ice. A boy actually jumped on my back. I slipped on ice, smashed my 2 front teeth, and I had multiple dental surgeries because it actually caused quite a bit of trauma in my mouth. And but at age 16 is when my parents stopped communicating with each other. And to give an example of that, my mother, if she wanted something from my father, she would ask one of the kids to go ask our dad for what it was she wanted. There was no communication between the two of them. So as you can imagine, that would have affected my throat chakra because I wasn't educated by my parents to be a communicator. Rather, my mother and father not communicating was a catalyst for me not understanding how to communicate. And at age 13, when I had broken my jaw, that was the year that my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. At age 16, when I was in my first car accident, was the year my dad died. So every experience that was traumatic in my life was reflected in my mouth area. But again, fast forward, once I got into this industry, and prior to that, not one intuitive, whether they were clairvoyant or clairsentient or otherwise, not one medical intuitive, not one holistic practitioner ever diagnosed this area as a problem. And of course, unless they were to ask me some questions, then, they may have gotten to the root cause. But with the biopulsar, instantly you can see where the programming is, whether it's positive or negative, and right away as a holistic practitioner, you can have a dialogue with the client. Because if I would have been my own practitioner, knowing what I know today, I would have said, oh, it looks like we're not getting a strong reading in your mouth area. This tells me that, you may hold back on an emotional level, or, in regards to talking about your beliefs. So we have to understand that our emotions will be held in the area that there's disharmony. Our thoughts will be held there, as well as our beliefs, our spirituality. And, again, when I look back 20 odd years ago, I was very limited in my communication abilities. And I always joke because one of my coworkers once said to me, Suzanne, you only think you feel. And that made me understand that I wasn't connected to my feeling emotions because of the fact, I wasn't taught that aspect because my parents hid that from me. So, and then there was another situation when I was in around 6 or 7, where I had a teacher badger me. He made me stand at the front of the class, and he asked me to say something, and I didn't say it the way he wanted me to, so he badgered me. And as a 6-year-old child, I got very upset, and I actually peed my pants in front of the whole classroom. So again, that was another layer of my trauma. But as a practitioner, had I been coaching somebody, I would have said, you know what, let's talk about, what's going on in your life. Was there anything traumatic that you can think about that related to the mouth? And of course, my first thought was this teacher putting me in front of the classroom. I didn't even think about my parents communicating. But this is the whole process when you're a holistic practitioner and you're looking at the aura and you're looking at the chakras, or you're looking at one's health. It's putting together the pieces of the puzzle. And there is no device that I know of on the market that actually breaks it down, that you can see the details of the aura, where you can see the connection to the chakras and see that body, mind, and spirit connection overall. And this is what impressed me about the system. It took away any doubt that I had in my mind of not believing what the practitioner was saying. And I think that's really important because, again, nowadays everybody wants proof. They want to know, well, how did you come up with that idea, or how did you come up with that assessment? So when you have the tangible proof, then there's no denying it. And this is one of the things that I've learned, because I have counseled thousands of people, is that when I go to the root cause of the situation and I start looking at the color and its connection to the chakra and what can be going on a physical level, then they tell me the traumas that have happened in their life. They can identify with it. And there's something about seeing is believing, because then again, if the client believes that your technology is accurate, then they're more inclined to believe more of what you're going to be, suggesting to them during the course of the session. Now, when I first started with the system, I'm going to close this window, but when I first started with the system, I started just reading the aura because that's what I was trained in. I was trained in color analysis. My whole theory was done on color therapy. So I looked at the colors and right away it made sense to me. So for example, this is my picture and you can see this beautiful green above the head. So this tells you that I'm a nice person. Okay, and because there's a few people here that have gotten to know me over time, I think you'll give me thumbs up that I'm pretty nice, right? And so therefore, I'm a very caring person. I'm not naturally emotional, but I am very caring. I'm always making sure that my coworkers are happy. Like I said earlier, I'm making glasses of tea so everybody can have a nice cool glass of tea in the afternoon. And it's just something that I do for people. If I want a nice iced tea, why wouldn't I make a little extra for everyone else? So that green depicts that this is somebody who's, caring, giving, that's a peacekeeper, just wanting to keep balance and harmony. And also it can relate to, the component of or capability of somebody wanting to assist people on that healing journey. So what I did at the beginning was I started by reading the colors of the person via their thoughts. All the colors in this brain area here are indicating how someone thinks, and the color language defines it. Now, early on in my career with the Biopulsar, I showed predominantly yellow and violet above the head, and yellow is that energy that likes to deduct. It's a optimistic energy. It's a natural teaching energy. So I attached to a lot of those characteristics, but I also noticed that constantly I had yellow in the head and I didn't have a lot of other colors. So that made me understand I wasn't using my full potential. I was always repressing myself on an emotional level, where now you can see I'm more tuned into that. So, that's how I started, by just talking to people about the energy that I saw above their head and how it related to their personality. The next thing I did was I would go through the picture to decipher if there was any areas of excesses or weaknesses that would help me understand about some of the situation of what the person was going through. So I started by going to the bottom of the organ analysis and just scrolling up to see if there was anything in there. So for example, with myself, we can see I have a little bit of orange in the hip. And if I go to the numerical values, and once you start working with the system, then you'll put, more of the pieces of the puzzle together. But if we look at my hip area, you'll see that my hip is 2.75, where again, when we see the value of the organ in between 5 and 7, that is good health. But just like the colors of the rainbow, gray obviously is absence of energy. Then it goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and then magenta, pink, and white at the highest level. So the colors are in essence telling us the vibrational frequency and what level it's at. So orange in the hips is telling me that I have a lack of energy in the hips, which would indicate a bit of stiffness. And this is an area that sometimes if I don't move my body enough, then my hips will get stiff. But the more I walk, the more I do, then the fluidity in my hips is stronger, and then I don't repress in that area, and then I have good clean flow through my energy. So the hips are another area that I would address with someone. And this also coincides with body language, because the hips are about how hip you are in life. It's also about your alignment. So again, we could break the hips down in a couple different ways. And again, this information is provided as part of your education to learn the body language in combination with the colors, the numerical values. So this way, again, you can do your readings quite holistically. But in this case, because the hips are at a lower level, that is something that I can address with myself, making sure that I don't become too analytical, not as hip in life, that I make sure that my alignment is strong so I move forward with ease and grace. Okay, and we can see it's in the orange, and orange is about having fun in life. So sometimes I have to make sure that I'm having enough fun in life and that I'm not becoming that workaholic and forgetting to play. So we can analyze it in that way. And of course, you know, afterwards we can open up the line of communication. I've muted everyone right now, so this way, we could just get forward with the presentation and later on do a Q&A. So scrolling through, we can also see that my lungs are in white. There's no color visible, which means they're white, versus when we looked at the mouth, we could see that was gray. So I have two opposing colors, white in the lungs and gray in the mouth. So white in the lungs is indicating that my breath isn't as strong and deep as it could be, that I'm a shallow breather and I'm probably breathing faster than I should be. So again, if we look at the connection to the body language, the lungs are about your intake of life, meaning how you're enjoying life. And so sometimes I'm rushing through life and maybe not taking time to enjoy my life. Even though I took a couple days off this past week, you know, again, I play very hard. So sometimes I need to just take my play a little bit more lightly. But the mouth is where I'd be focusing on the consultation, because gray in an organ means denial. It could be grief, it could be trauma. There's a lot of association to gray in an organ. And this is one of the things that I learned when I work with the Biopulsar intuitively. Then I get a lot of psychosomatic information, because then I'm connecting to the client and I'm sensing what it is that color means to them. Although when you purchase the Biopulsar, there's a lot of different, you know, charts that you get that give you a lot of indication as to what these things mean. So for example, if we look at the throat chakra, then right away we can see the number value being under 40%. It's a person's inability to speak their truth or the truth, lacking trust. And I could say that's probably a little bit of an issue with me, because you know, the fact that I've had a lot of people break their trust with me, then of course, you know, I have to be clear in my communication to ensure that I don't run into that same situation. Also, it's our right to express. And even though, again, on an unconscious and conscious level, I believe, or let's say on a conscious level, I understand that I have the right to express, I still hold back a lot of my expression. And it's a choice I make, because obviously being in the healing industry, you know, I can't always be healing people. I can't always be helping people. Sometimes people have to learn on their own, and I'm not going to micromanage people in my life, and I'm certainly not going to micromanage my clients. And in fact, one of the things that I say to my clients is that I'm going to give you a lot of suggestions, you know, try to indicate, you know, the things that you can do that are conducive to your growth, but ultimately it's your decision if you want to do that. So I also feel that I'm a work in progress. So therefore, I'm always going to work on my energy, because I want to make sure at the end of my life, my bags are packed, that I'm not packing because I haven't focused on things in my life that are important. Okay, and as well, it gives you what the different colors can mean. So we can see with gray, it could be depression in that area, a lower consciousness, denial, lack of energy, etc., etc. Whereas white, on the other hand, is purity, high consciousness, godliness. But again, it doesn't belong in the lungs unless there's healing. But because I see this on occasion, I know that I have to be careful and maybe focus on breath work, because obviously I'm not breathing deep enough. And because I talk for a living, I'm often taking very shallow inhales. So therefore, again, that could be indicating, you know, that I need to focus more on breathing while I talk. Okay. Now, I'm just going to kind of go around here. And so reading the aura, we have instructions on how you read the aura from beginning to end. So this way, you know, this way you learn how to read the aura. Now, I also let everyone know that when I first started reading the aura, it probably took me about 20 or 30 to get really comfortable. By the time I hit reading about 50 people, I was very confident. And so I tell everyone, you know, everybody's level of confidence is different, but by the time you've done 50 scans, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable, because you're going to find that people will, be divulging things to you to help you build up that confidence. And I always think about one owner who read her nephew, and her nephew denied everything. And so right off the gate, she was a little shaky doing the readings. And it was 2 months later that her nephew phoned her and said, I just want you to know that you hit the nail on the head with so many things when you're doing your biopulsar reading with me, that it actually scared me, and I denied everything that you said. So for months, she was shaky in her confidence because she put so much trust in someone she knew. But what I can tell you is that, especially when you're first starting, try not to read too many people that you know, rather read clients or, more or less strangers, because you'll find that they'll divulge more information than a family member who might be hiding some of the family truths from you. So it's just sort of a recommendation I give when people are first starting out. Now, when it comes to the chakras, it's very self-explanatory, because with myself, we can see the root is at 42 and my highest chakra is at 77. So that's indicating a 35-point spread. So I analyze the chakras exactly like that. I want to have the chakra flow ideally within a 10-point spread, but even 20% is quite good, where most people resonate a difference between chakras of 20% or greater. So therefore, it's indicating that that chakra is imbalanced, because the flow of energy is quite far apart. So when you're doing a scan, you would be talking about the strongest energy center in combination with the weakest energy. Now, on a health level, it could indicate some other factors too. So for example, if somebody is anemic, then the root chakra will be weak in its support, because there's not enough oxygen in the blood, which would put more stress on the heart, and it could end up illustrating high blood pressure. Okay, so depending on, the types of readings that you want to do, then you would either, be sticking to the aura and the chakras, or if you're doing more of a holistic consultation, then you can incorporate more information in regards to a client's health. And this has also been an area with myself that I've been very concerned about, not so much today, but, several years ago when I went through menopause, my menstrual cycle was quite heavy, and I did have blood clots. And of course, blood clots are iron. And I became so anemic, my root chakra fell into the 20s. And I could see that my root chakra was affected by, my iron level, as well as obviously I wasn't absorbing all my micronutrients. And so my root chakra, one of the building blocks is those micro nutrients. And because I was deprived of that, my heart chakra was even higher at the time, because it was putting a lot of stress on my heart, because I didn't have enough oxygen in my blood. And, again, because I have been self-diagnosing, I was able to learn this on my own and then just sort of extend it to clients. So I have learned that when people's root chakra is, underneath, especially that 30% mark, that often they are anemic. And when I say often, you're probably talking 80 to 90% of people would be anemic. And even guys, because I've had several men on here where their root chakra was extremely low, and one said he was so anemic and was struggling to get his iron content up, where I had a few other men that got their blood work done and discovered they were anemic, and they had no idea that could have been a cause. But because there's a lot of hereditary factors, both energetically and physically, we have to understand that there's a lot of things that could be hidden in our aura map, in our energy dynamics, that we're not aware of. And so therefore, again, as a holistic practitioner, these are things that I probe with a client. But statistically, I know the lower the root chakra, the more likely that person isn't absorbing the level of iron. And that could be a whole other topic that we, conversation that we have, which we did touch on, I think, in our one of our last Biopulsar classes. So the chakras, again, are self-explanatory. Now, I want to go through some of the features of the software so you can see how easy it is. Once you put a client's hand on the hand plate, adjust their hand accordingly. You get them closing their eyes and just counting to 100. So this way, this gives you time to get an accurate reading. By the time the person has hit about 30 seconds, their energy has stabilized. And when I open up the graphs, this will give you a perspective of the beginning of a reading and a bit more instability versus the longer somebody's hand is on the plate, the more stability that we'll get in a reading. So usually the first 30 seconds I don't really count because that is somebody getting more into that restful state that we can get an accurate reading. So there'll be more deviations at the beginning of a scan than later on in the scan. So the graph software illustrates that a bit easier. Otherwise, I just focus on the color of the crown chakra, and at the point that I feel I have a good reading, I just freeze the data button here, and that freezes the data. And AuraMed developed a lot of shortcut buttons to make it really easy. Once I have frozen the data, I go to the blue head and I type in the client's name or file name. So if I'm doing an event, then I'll just type in a person's name, or if I'm doing more regular scans with the client, then I would put in a code number for them so it becomes quite a private scan. I just simply hit the OK button. I go to the record feature, and this is where I put in the client's file data. So I do it by putting 4 letters of their last name, followed by the first initial of their first name, and then followed by today's date. So 07/21, and we're in the year 2020, which I just illustrate by 20. And I just have to bring this up, and then I hit save. And now I have recorded my scan. So I actually record everything because sometimes I will do comparison scans where I go back and show a client their energy. Then the next thing I do is I'm going to go to the print preview and show you that you can print out a picture or you can make a PDF file. Now, this is always good for learning. I could also print out the graphs, but that's not what I actually wanted to show you. But I can print out the graphs for a client. I actually want to print out the aura picture. So I just click anywhere on the picture to signify that that's what I want to print out. And again, I go to page preview. I want to print out the aura animation, but sometimes I want to print out a little bit more information. So I may print out a report, or depending what I'm doing with the client, I want to print out the total values. And here again, all I have to do is hit OK. Now what's going to happen is it'll show you a print preview of what it is that you're printing. So here I am printing out the aura picture, and I can make a PDF file of this, which I'll just show you how easy it is. Plus, I can also print out the color values of every organ and gland, which is really good when you're doing treatment protocols. And because we also work with light therapy, I would use the light therapy to pinpoint where I'm going to do my treatment. And again, this is a conversation I can have later on in regards to how that can be maximized. So here, I'm just going to continue, and because my screen is at a full level, where is it here? Oops. So I'm just going to continue to print, and then it's just going to come up to clarify that's what I want to do. Because I'm in the page preview, it shows you twice, where if I bypass that, then right away it'll go to print. So here I have the option of printing out on a printer, or nowadays what I love is I can create a PDF file and actually email that to the client. So just by creating a PDF file, then it's prompting where it's going to make that PDF file. And I'll just save it on my desktop, and then all I have to do is attach it to an email, and I can send out my clients their pictures. So this way you don't have to print anything. And then plus, nowadays people love getting their aura picture on their cell phone. So this way they have it on their cell phone and they can walk around and show their friends, look at my aura picture, you know, and it makes it just a lot more fun. So here I would just again type in the client's file name and the date, and then save it on my desktop to attach to an email. So there, I've just created a PDF file of the picture. Super easy to do. So again, we're saving trees by emailing the client the picture. We don't have to worry about printing anything out. So we're saving our costs, because it generally would cost you about 50 cents to print out a picture, including the paper and the ink. Plus you have to invest in the printer, where nowadays I go all over the place and all I do is email people. Plus, that allows me to get the client's email address, so this way I can remain in contact. Plus, I do like to send out clients additional information. And these are some of the things that I include. And again, Dr. Emmett and Nancy, as well as Carolyn, can attest to the fact by thumbs up that I do send out a lot of email and support. Sometimes too much, that I think I overwhelm people, and then they don't know what to do with all the information I give. Oh no, Carolyn's saying, no, I send enough, plenty of information, right? Wonderful. Now, in a nutshell, this are all the shortcuts from, showing the graphs, to showing the aura picture, to the chakra picture. So I'm just clicking on the button so you can see what windows are being activated. This is just the communication that has to be active. This is the free sensor data. This is the save button. This is to refresh my screen. This is to replay a file that I may have saved. So if I want to go back and look at something to compare the data, then I can do that. As well, I can open up a separate Biopulsar program and actually have two programs up to show a before and after photo if I want. And this is just the stop replay button. And this button is used when we're doing live biofeedback, which if we have time, I'll show some of that information on how we can do that. Now, this is where we access additional software that has been purchased. Because I have all the software, I can utilize any software that I want that comes with the program. And I've done that because I do holistic counseling on a psychological level. Plus I do light therapy. So then I would activate the ChromaLife. The personal trainer is where, we can assist clients as well as ourselves with fitness protocols. Fit Active goes with the personal trainer. Then we have Horoscope, which I'll show in just a second here, which is psychological information. It was written by psychotherapists. Then we also have a homeopathic software and a holistic software here that is geared towards acupuncture. And then Color Energy does have a software that we include with the program. So this way you can get some great information. And I'm just going to activate that. And this is how you switch over to activate any of the additional softwares that you may have purchased with the system. Because it's module based, then we can create a package as simple as the Aura and Chakra Consultant package. And even though I say simple, it is very detailed. There's a lot of things you can do with it, including a complete holistic examination. However, the more software you purchase, then the more elaborate the system becomes. So when I'm, I have clinics and healing centers that will invest in a $20,000 to $30,000 package, but most people start around the $10,000 range, grow their business, and then add modules as they grow their business. So this software here is the software that corresponds to, and I'm just gonna, oops. Sorry. This is the psychological software that was written by a team of psychoanalysts. So we're going to go to an organ that is, more or less dysfunctional, because it gives you the data of what you can talk about with your client. So here, what it's illustrating is that when the mouth organ is at a low level, the vitality is 1. Now, I just want to show you, this is what you were seeing here is that 0.35. However, they've rounded it up or rounded it down to a simple digit number. And so when we're looking at the data of the psychological horoscope software, you're just getting it as a number 1 value. But when you're looking at it more in detail by clicking this button right here, then you get the window that pops open of every organ and gland. Plus, when you hit OK, this acts as a copy button where you can input all the data into an Excel spreadsheet. And I don't have time to show that today, but I think that was illustrated on one of my other videos. Plus, I have a step-by-step outline on how to do these things, as well as it's in the technical manual. But when we're doing a consultation, we can use this information to help people acknowledge or tap into what could be blocking them in that organ where they're having problems. And because we know every organ is connected to our emotions, our thoughts and our ideas, as well as our belief system, this is what this software narrows. However, I'll also let you know in the training manual, there's a lot of body language information in there. So to begin with, it's not necessary that you purchase the software unless you feel that it's going to add on by having all this information on the screen. But it is incredible software because it goes into details. And, you know, with myself, I would be looking at the lung as well as the mouth. And when I'm printing out a report, I can actually signify what it is that I want the client to study. So in this case, for example, I might highlight the lung as well as I might highlight the hips, because I know that that's a problem with myself, you know, as well as the total values and introduction with a conclusion, and print out that information for the client, or again, create a PDF file that I can send to the client. You always have that option to create that PDF file. So that is the Horoscope software. And then with the Color Energy software, what I love about this is that you just go to the weakest chakra, and right here, it gives you information in regards to the lessons that connect to that chakra, some of the symptoms that could be experienced with the imbalances, as well as the body language. So here with myself, we can see that it says ability to be hip and ability to move forward in life, as well as flexibility. So right there, it gives you information as to, you know, dialogue that you can have with the client. And as well with your training manual, there's a whole page of information on the hips. So you learn the physicality, the psychology behind it, as well as there's a lot of questions listed that you can ask your client to, again, help them understand why that organ might be problematic on an energetic level. It also breaks down physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually what that chakra is connected to, as well as what a balanced root chakra means versus if it's excessive or deficient, or why we might use, you know, red energy for healing. As well, it gives you a whole bunch of treatment protocols. And this is one of the reasons why I love Color Energy products, because when a vibration is weak in a chakra, we can simply prescribe different color vibrational tools to support that chakra so the energy gets pushed up or balanced out, so there's a stronger energy flow. And again, this is what you'll learn as a biopulsar or a consultant, is how to read the aura, but also how to recommend things that the client can do. And the different things that we can recommend can be anything from foods, because obviously if we recommend that somebody eats more red foods, then they're naturally bringing in the red vibration to boost up, in this case, their root chakra. Or with every chakra, it lists all the different foods and things that you can do, as well as you can see there's herbs and spices, teas that people can drink, and even gemstones. I like that because, you know, especially being a woman, it's nice that I can change the color of my jewelry to accommodate whatever chakra I'm weak in. And if you sell products, then obviously you can encourage product sales by having different tools. So if you sell, you know, chakra jewelry or gemstones, then you can see there's a lot of suggestions here. I have people who work with gemstones, very refined gemstones, where they create jewelry specific to the client to help them with their energy imbalances. Here you can also see that there's an indication or correlation to music in that color and chakra, as well as different exercises that people can do, from, you know, doing different suggestions such as different yogas, from dancing, in this case to do with the root chakra, even hip rotations, as well as gardening and other things that, again, would support that person's root chakra. And here we can go down to some nutritional support, as well as some miscellaneous products. It's a little bit geared towards Color Energy products, but nonetheless, lots of great information that you can recommend based on what it is that you want to, you know, or how you want to help the client in regards to their healing program. And of course, you can do chakra balancing or other forms of treatment to assist the client on that level of support. So that's all contained in the chakra software. And then we also have the graph software, which is ideal for doing more detailed wellness reports. So you can print out the graphs for the client, or you can utilize those number values to illustrate, you know, where their energy weaknesses or strengths are. But the graphs are used more for that analytical perspective to share with people, you know, what could be happening on a health level. So how simple it is the closer this red measuring line is to the green, what we call harmony line, then the closer it is to a reserve of health. When it's slightly under, then it's illustrating that that organ is just a little bit weaker, but still within the normal range. However, the more the organ is closer to the bottom of the graph, the more stress there is. And every organ goes through stages. So for example, when an organ is first being affected, it goes to a hyperactive stage. So we can see this with the lungs. You know, my lungs are at the highest level. They'll be reflected in a numerical value close to the 10 range because it's right at the top. In this case, it's 9.96. So we can see it should be between 5 and 7, and I'm at a hyperactive level in my lungs. So that is indicating stress. However, if I don't pay attention to it or find some sort of resolution, eventually my breathing apparatus is going to be affected. My respiratory system will start to weaken because your body cannot keep working at an excess. In conventional medicine as well as alternative medicine, an organ first goes to a state of hyperactivity. And we also see this expression in the color language. So when we understand the color association, when there's a buildup of energy or an excess of energy or hyperactivity of energy, we start out as green being normal, then turquoise being optimal, and then it goes blue, indigo, violet, magenta, pink, and white at the top. We saw that my lungs were white, so this is illustrating that my lungs are working very hard, and it could be one because I need to be gulping more air, or it could even be resultant of a toxic environment, and that environment could be at home or at work. So we need to then, again, as a holistic counselor, determine what could be causing the lungs to be going to a hyperactive state. It could be anything from, you know, mold in the home, or in offices, there's a lot of recycled air. There's no fresh air coming in. And so therefore people are breathing in a lot of carbon monoxide rather than good, clean, fresh air. And this is why, again, if you're working with different tools, for example, to improve the breathing atmosphere or, you know, the level of air, quality of air, we can sell an ionizing diffuser, which Color Energy has an aromatherapy ionizing diffuser, so we can sell that to the client to help encourage good breath work. So again, we would address that. But when an organ starts to fall in energy, we start to see it sliding down. So we'll see it, for example, in the case of the nose, that the nose will be slightly lower, whereas in my case, my mouth was the organ that was flatlining, indicating that that is where my extreme stress is. And I understand this because of the fact I have had a lot of dental issues, you know, throughout my life. And I was recently told, because I did a complete, not just x-ray of my mouth, but they did a complete CAT scan of my mouth, and they discovered where I had my root canal that I actually have bacteria. So I am having to deal with this issue now of getting the bacteria removed. So that's next on my slate of things to do once COVID sort of settles out, because I did go to the dentist during this time, and you know, I was told that I still can wait a little bit. So because I've probably lived with this, you know, for 50 years, as you can imagine, that could be a contributing factor as to why my mouth is weaker. But again, it could also be that my jaw is broken and other factors that have created that energy blockage. But nonetheless, I'm always going to try to fix my mouth, because as a concerned, patient myself, I want to ensure by the time I get to the end of my life that I'm in good health. And I did do some radical therapies when I found my mouth, was weak 20 years ago. I got all the mercury out of my mouth. I did some really radical detoxes. So as I mentioned, my mouth was actually quite dark black at the beginning. It's now a flat gray, which is indicating that the poisoning is gone, the toxicity is gone, the mercury is gone. Now I just have to maybe deal with some of the residual of what's left. But there's other factors that we have to understand that could be pulling that energy down. And again, we have to look at the 4 quadrants that make up holistic health, which is physically what's going on and how we can improve it, energetically, emotionally, what does that represent emotionally, as well as what does that represent mentally. Because I'm very strong with my left brain, I am not what I call a free-flowing person on an emotional level. If you ask me what I'm feeling, I will tell you, but often I don't freely divulge it. That's not in my nature. And we all have our own personalities, and there's no right or wrong, but if we can learn from the Biopulsar more about a person's personality, then we can understand why this might be an area of conflict. And then the 4th area that we look at is spiritually, what does that mean? And, I can also share with you 20 years ago, the words that I choose to use in regards to spirituality, my vocabulary is much bigger now, where, 20 years ago, I never said the G word. Now today I will say God, and again, it was part of my programming in regards to my relationship with God. So I understand that energy deficiency on all levels, but again, it's still getting it back into a healthy level, because we also have to understand there's the 4 quadrants that we're dealing with physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And we can see from my chakra representation that my throat chakra is 55, which is in the normal range, but we're still seeing that my mouth is flatlining. So that would be illustrating the issue has more to do with the mouth, not the complete chakra system of the throat chakra, or not just the throat chakra itself, but just one organ is more or less pulling the energy down or interfering with optimal energy flow. So those are the 3 softwares. And then again, there are other support softwares, which we're running out of time, so I don't want to have to go into too much about each one, other than what I've already explained to you. But rather what I'd like to do is just sort of, open up the line of communication so I can answer any questions that you guys might have in regards to the presentation so far, and that I haven't missed sharing something with you. Ooh, I just lost my Biopulsar window. I put that back, and I'm just going to make sure, yeah, that we're still on that. Okay, that's good. And then I'm just going to unmute everyone. So, here we go. Okay, so I'm just opening you all up to asking any questions. So,
Suzanne?
Yes.
Do you think sometime you could show some of the software of the medical diagnostics?
Yeah, we're actually doing that on Thursday. So
great.
If you remember from the poll asked what training you guys would like next, and the majority said more data on the organ biofeedback graph software. So I will be covering that in my next seminar. Now, for those of you who don't have the Biopulsar, this won't be available to you at this point, but once you get the Biopulsar, then you'll be able to join in our different training sessions. Okay. Okay, any questions? Any other questions?
Hi, Susan, it's Crystal.
Hi.
Sorry, I just have to leave the webinar, but there might be a few questions. It's okay for me just to email you in the future?
Absolutely, or feel free to call me. I tell everyone if I pick up the phone, then it's a perfect time to talk. The only time I wouldn't be at my desk is, if I've stepped out of my office to either eat lunch or otherwise. But typically I'm at my office all day, so you can call or certainly send me an email.
Thanks so much for the information. Appreciate it.
Oh, and actually just before, if you've got one more second, oh, polling session is inactive. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm going to send you guys a little poll, so this way I just get some feedback from you, okay?
Yes.
Awesome, thanks, Crystal. And then for those of you who are still left standing, any other questions?
Just one question, Suzanne. I'm not sure if it was covered in the questions. I just had to take a quick call. But what is the optimum numbers for the chakras?
So we're looking at between 50 and 70, similar to the organs, but in the organs we say 5 to 7, where with the chakra percentages it's on a scale of 0 to 100. So between 50 and 70 is ideal. 65 is optimal. 70 just means a little bit exaggerated, and underneath, you know, that 6.5 is just illustrating on the low side of normal. But as soon as you get under 50, then you're starting to go into an energetic weakness. And this is why even with myself, you know, my root chakra is needing a little bit of support because it's at 42. So at the minimum, I should have it at 50. But as we age, and these are some of the things that you'll learn the more you work with the system, the root chakra will degrade with age. But when you know that, then you can support your root chakra by, you know, doing more things that will, you know, keep it active and strong. However, you know, we tend to reap the benefits of what we sow as we start getting into the 50s and 60s. And of course, older than that as well, where often when you're putting children on who are younger, you're going to see their root chakra is much, much stronger and healthier. Even with myself, when I started with the Biopulsar, that was 20 years ago, my root chakra was literally never below 50. But as soon as I hit, you know, menopause, and that's when I started to see that my root chakra was being affected. And there's obviously a lot of things that can affect each one of the chakras, but, you know, through the training, you'll learn a lot more about the chakra system than you've probably learned in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Get in the 70s, it's really tough to get it up there.
Absolutely. And in my last class, we had Paula, who her root chakra was really, really weak, and she did some radical things. And, you know, she lost like 50 pounds. And this was a transformation that she went through because she had the Biopulsar. Because one of the things that I think is incredible with the Biopulsar is every time somebody gets a scan, and you want to encourage people to get regular scans because people only think they know things. But when you have that tangible proof and they see it over and over and over again, had I not seen my throat chakra at a state of weakness over and over and over again, I wouldn't have understood the depths of what I needed to do in regards to healing myself. This is not a superficial chakra machine. Most systems have a meter that says, oh, your root chakra is strong and healthy. Well, you know what? This gives you the evidence of whether it is strong and healthy, but also if it's not strong and healthy, what is causing that chakra to weaken? You're seeing the perspective on a health level through the number value. You're seeing it in the perspective of the color, and you're seeing it in the perspective of the chakra flow. So you have 3 courses of evidence that's going to illustrate to you what's creating that chakra or energy weakness of an organ or chakra, or however you want to relate to it. And when I first started, I spent 2 years perfecting my skills on how to read the aura, because there was no training, there was no manual whatsoever. It was through my own trial and error, literally, where now Oramed provides you with a booklet called Energy Organ or Energy Language of the Organs. You get a 200-page training manual. The course material is an excess of like 150 pages of support and exercises that you go through. You really learn a lot about energy medicine through our training program. And, you know, most people don't think of it this way. I had a lot of experiences on the Biopulsar because I took the Biopulsar home with me every day. I'd bring it to the office, I'd take it home. I'd bring it to the office, I took it home. And I did that because I wanted to see how my food was affecting me. I wanted to see how I was sleeping. And this is why I know with Paula, you know, for herself, it helped her lose, you know, I'm sure it was around 40 to 50 pounds because she saw also. I had another Biopulsar owner that was addicted to Coke. Coke. And it took her about 2 to 3 months to wean herself off the Coke, because at first she didn't think about it as that the Coke was affecting her. But then I kept telling her, you got to look at what you're doing. And because she came through my training, and I don't feed anybody Coke, okay? You come here, you're getting herbal tea and water. However, she actually would bring her, you know, I don't want to say she bring a 6-pack with her, but she did. She brought her own Coke supply. And so she went through the experience of stopping, you know, drinking the Coke and actually seeing how her energy rebounded to a healthier state. And, you know, we're a society of people who tend to drink a lot of junk, or drink a lot of junk, soda pop, or drinks that we think are good for us, but they're still so much sugar. With this, I can have myself a nice iced tea with lemon, and sure, I could put a little bit of coconut sugar or agave sugar in it, but I have control over if I want to put sugar in it or not. Pardon?
Because I have water with lemon.
Exactly. You know, and because I drink a lot of water anyway, sometimes I like to have the herbal tea, because then I'm also getting, you know, the compounds of the herbs as well. But I'm trying to teach people about other alternatives, that they don't have to be, you know, doing the things that are negative to their body. But when I get people coming to me for the first time, you know, depending on the reading and what they want, because I will do aura readings, I will do chakra readings, and I do complete holistic examinations. My holistic examinations take a couple hours, but we're going through everything. But any healthcare practitioner, you know, that is doing a complete holistic examination, you know, should be taking time to ask questions and to decipher the information. And
hour and a half.
yeah, exactly. And plus I've given you guys also other tools. When you purchase the Biopulsar, I have checklists. So you can go through the checklist to ask the client questions. You know, I have a 5-page client intake form that is chakra coded. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. You know, and so therefore, you know, there's all these tools that you get, but I grew into the holistic consultations over time, because that was not my training, where, you know, Dr. Emmett, you jumped right all over, you know, the fact that you could use the system for more detailed diagnostics, because you had the skills right away to utilize that. I didn't. Right?
Right.
Yep. And we've done just a comment on some of the other machines compared to the Biopulsar. One of the places that we do a health fair at is a psychic center.
Right.
And many of the people that come say, oh, I've had my aura read before. They have their aura read this way. It is like, oh, wow, that's not what I found out before. Yeah. Wow, you know all of that? And it took the same amount of time. So they're extremely, extremely impressed. And I'm just always amazed at the things that I see and can interpret. Yeah. I said to this one girl who was a lot of gray in her head and her heart.
Yeah.
I just took a deep breath and I said, so what happened this morning? And she said, what do you mean what happened this morning? I said, something happened in your life this morning that was traumatic and heartbreaking. She had split up with a guy she'd been with for 15 years. And he said, I'm moving out today. Goodbye.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So our mother figured she needed to get out of the house and do something. So she dragged her to but you know, it just amazed people.
Yeah.
Another girl, I couldn't keep her vitalities would go for about 30 seconds, and then she would totally crash on everything.
Yeah.
And I thought that there was something in the room that was interrupting her aura. Right. So I had her take a deep breath, kind of cleanse things out, did it again, same thing happened. And I said, so how has your health been? And she said, I've been out of the hospital for 3 weeks. I was in the hospital for 2.5 months. I had a total shutdown of my system. And she said, I had no energy. Yeah. So that's why it was doing that. That's all the energy she had in any part of her body was for that 30 seconds.
Yeah, I could see that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And, you know, again, so however you want to use the technology is where you'll start, but you'll just naturally grow with the system because more and more people will share stories with you. And then because you'll have the evidence of the stories that they're sharing with you, then you'll just grow your repertoire of understanding of how you can use the system. But, you know, thank you for also sharing that it is quite different than other aura systems that are out there because they are very limited in their capabilities. And in fact, the one thing that I always, you know, show is look at how many sensors are on our hand plate.
Yeah,
We're measuring so much, where most systems out there, you know, and there's a lot of systems that only measure through an energy channel, and yet they're getting all this data, which is scientifically impossible. So, you know, again, it's more based on hypothetical data, which can have some accuracy because as you get better as a reader, then you'll be able to read more into the situation. You know, so for example, if you're seeing that the person's dehydrated, all you have to do is look at their skin and you'll see that dehydration. And because 70% of people are dehydrated, any system can tell you you're dehydrated. But with our system, you'll see exactly where the dehydration is and what are the components that are adding to that dehydration. You know, are you dehydrated in all your water organs? You know, you're going to see exactly what's causing it as well as what's contributing to it.
Brain, water,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, any other questions for today?
Thank you very much.